Well, Taylor, what happens when you have a NFL team going up against college all-stars in July in Chicago?
I don't know you could have anything that happens on that.
Well, for once, we don't have snow. What we do have is an absolute washout that literally ended an all-star game series.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah, that's coming up next year on Game of Storms.
This is the X Sports Network.
Welcome back to another episode of Game of Storms. AJ Good here with Taylor Plott, the sports guy with the weather guy, but we both like each side of it. So talking some football today here, Taylor, and this is wild. I came across this game a few years ago. I've always been fascinated by it, but the more I've dug into this, it's absolutely crazy. Mm-hmm. What comes to mind when you think of a NFL team or just any pro team going up against college all-stars?
Honestly, from a sports perspective, that's a really good, I think, matchup right there. You've got, obviously, really, really good college players who can, obviously, make that transition to pro level, and they're going up against pro athletes at this point. So, honestly, that is a really intriguing matchup.
So what it is, it's the Chicago Charities College All-Star Game, and we're going to be talking about the final edition. Happened in 1976 between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the College All-Stars. So it's the Chicago Charities College All-Star Game. It started in 1934 and it ended in 1976. So it pits the previous NFL champions, so whoever won the Super Bowl or the NFL title from the previous year against college all-stars. So this is how it works, Taylor. It is really wild. It is not guys who are still in college. It is guys from the previous college year who are on NFL teams.
Oh, okay.
And they come together to play a game that's a part of the preseason.
Okay, well that's still a very, very interesting matchup. So I was actually thinking that it was college, like you were either just graduated or you're on your senior year and you're really, really good. But that's so people who have been drafted they're on NFL rosters, but they really hadn't gotten their time to shine yet.
Yeah, no, these are guys on actual teams, and as we'll see in this game that we're talking about, and some of the other ones, these guys are actually going up against the teams that they're on at that point in time, and it's just I've had the last couple of days so much trouble wrapping my head around. We're going to take guys from all these other teams, we're going to put them on one team to face this other team, then you're going to go back to that team.
Exactly.
It's really wild. So the game was created by Arch Ward, was the sports editor of the Chicago Tribune, and actually was a big driving force behind the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. So the game, it's benefited Chicago area charities. It started and was played at Soldier Field every year except for twice. 2 years they didn't play. It was 1943, 1944, World War II, where they had to move it to Northwestern. But every other time it happened at Soldier Field there in Chicago. And taking a look at some of these games, the only time they didn't play in 1974 is because of the players' strike. But looking at some of these games, one thing that stands out to me, Taylor, attendance. Yeah. So you think preseason game, not really attended well and we're all judging this from a 2025 lens. Right. But this is a preseason game, normally not well attended. How well do you think these games were attended? I'm
going to actually think that it was actually well attended.
Very well. The first year in 1934 they had 79,000.
Wow.
1942 the Bears beat the College All-Stars 21-0 in front of 101,000 fans.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Pretty good. I'm seeing, but that's not the highest one. The highest one was 1947. 105,000 watched the College All-Stars beat the Bears in 1947. The next year, the Chicago Cardinals shut out the All-Stars in front of 101,000 fans. There's a bunch of 90s, some 70s, some 60s, and the final edition of this in 1976 had 52,000 fans.
I mean, that's a very well-attended football game. Obviously, it's for a good cause, too.
Right.
But that is that's fantastic. I didn't even know that the attendance was that high.
Yeah, and the driving force was getting money for charities, which from 1934 to 1976 they raised over $4 million. Like I haven't done the adjusted for inflation or adjusted from those numbers to now. That's just a lot of work, especially when you're talking about a game that happened for 42 years or 41 years. It's really hard to project that. So what do you think the NFL team's record was against the college all-stars?
Oh. How many games were there total?
They played 41. They played 41 times.
41 times. I'm going to say the record was 30-11.
You're very close. Actually, almost dead on
really?
Close. The NFL went 39-2.
39-2, okay.
They had 2 ties, including the first ever game between the All-Stars and the Bears in 1934 was a tie. And the second tie came in their second game when the All-Stars and the Detroit Lions tied up at 7. So those were low-scoring games. And the last time the All-Stars won was in 1963. They beat the Green Bay Packers, led by Vince Lombardi, in front of 65,000 fans, beat them 20-17.
Wow. They only scratched 2 wins, though.
Or 9 wins.
Or 9.
2 ties.
Yeah, 2 ties. 9 wins. Yeah.
They won in 37, 6-0 over the Packers, 28-16 and 38. 43, they beat Washington 27-7, shut out the Rams and the Bears in back-to-back years, 46 and 47. Each game 16-0.
Yeah.
Beat the Eagles 17-7 and 50. 55 beat the Browns, a high-scoring game, 30-27. 58 beat the Lions again. Poor Lions. They kept losing in this game. 35-19. Then the final one came in 63. And then everything after that was just one blowout after another. Packers shut them out back-to-back years, 66-67, 38-0, 27-0. And then the Steelers were in the last 2, winning 21-14 and 24-0. So these are preseason games, but it's not a part of the preseason schedule. So how many preseason games do you think the NFL was playing in 1976?
Did they have like 3?
It's more than that.
It's more than that?
Yeah.
Would they have like a lot?
More than what they do now.
Is it 7?
6.
6?
They
Holy cow.
Yeah, and this game didn't count towards that.
So that would basically be the 7th game then.
Yeah, they played 6 preseason games. And now we're talking about everyone's talking again. Back then it was a 14-game schedule, but everyone talks now, oh my gosh, we're going to play 17 games with 4 preseason games. I'm like, God, man, they were playing 6 preseason games. Now they still somewhat treated them like they do today. Your starters are going to play a couple series. But you get all the way up, I think it's like the next to last preseason game, your starters play at least a half, maybe even a little bit in the third quarter. So they still treated it somewhat different like that. So who do you think played in the All-Star game the most? What organization did?
Because you said this was who won the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah. Or the NFL championship.
Yeah, NFL championship at that point. Packers?
Yeah, 8 times. Went 6-2. The Bears went 7 times, went 5-1. Browns and Lions each 4 times. The Browns 3-1. The Lions 2-1. The Baltimore Colts 3 times, all 3 wins. The Eagles went 3 times, 2-1. Giants and Steelers were in it twice. Both won both games. Rams went 1-1. Washington, 2 trips, 2 losses, 38 and 43. Then you have the Chicago Cardinals, the New York Jets, Kansas City Chiefs, Dallas Cowboys, and Miami Dolphins. All win once and all won. So,
I completely forgot that Chicago was the Cardinals back then.
Well, then they moved to St. Louis, and then they went to Arizona. Poor St. Louis. They can't keep an organization to
They should have kept
the
Rams. I'm not going to say anything else besides that.
No, I'm with you 100%. So let's take a look at the 1976 Pittsburgh Steelers. They went 10-4 that year, won the AFC Central, eventually lost to the Raiders in the AFC Championship game before the Raiders went on to win the Super Bowl. They had the 5th-ranked offense in the NFL, and of course, because it's still curtain, the first-ranked defense, and they pitched 5 shutouts that year. A strange start to their season. They lost 4 out of their first 5, and then went on a 10-game win streak before getting it snapped in the AFC Championship game. Let's look at the offensive statistics. 1976 is a wild year here, Taylor. Terry Bradshaw, your Hall of Fame quarterback, threw for I had it right here. I'm losing myself here. He threw for 1,177 yards, 10 touchdowns to 9 interceptions, and had a 47.9 completion percentage.
Was he injured?
He played in 10 games, started 8, and his backup started in 6. His backup didn't throw a touchdown, threw 3 interceptions. He averaged 6.1 yards per attempt. His backup averaged 8.9 yards per attempt.
What happened with Terry Bradshaw?
I'm guessing
Holy cow.
I'm guessing he was injured. His backup was Mike Kruschek, who actually we're going to talk about later because he actually played against his own team. His backup finished 3rd in the Rookie of the Year voting. Kruschek threw for 758 yards, no touchdowns, 3 interceptions, had a 60% completion percentage, and let's see, yards per catch 14.9, yards per catch for Bradshaw was 12.8. But where they got the job done, the 5th-ranked best offense in the NFL was on the ground. Franco Harris, 1,128 yards, 14 touchdowns. Rocky Bleiler, 1,036 yards, 5 touchdowns. So think of this, a 14-game season, he had not one but 2 1,000-yard rushers.
That's very, very impressive. And obviously it goes to show just how well that offense was. Obviously, you mentioned the Steel Curtain. Everybody immediately goes back to that defense that Pittsburgh had, but they had a really good offense. And like you said, it was on the ground.
Their leading receiver, another Hall of Famer, Lynn Swann, had 28 catches for 516 yards and 3 touchdowns. If you judge that by 2025, you're thinking, oh, we're cutting this dude.
Exactly. He's not worth it.
He's not getting open enough. We're cutting this guy. But, of course, where they made their hay was on defense. Now, this team had 8 Pro Bowlers. 7 came on the defensive side. The lone offensive was Franco Harris. Their numbers are just ridiculous. They forced 66 turnovers.
Holy cow.
They had 22 interceptions and 42 fumbles. They forced 66 turnovers. Can you guess how many they returned for touchdowns?
That's what I was just trying to think. I'm going to say 15.
It's lower.
It's lower? 10.
Lower.
5.
None.
Really? Absolutely zero.
Did not have a defensive touchdown in 1976.
How do you have 60-plus turnovers?
Yeah.
How did you not return one of them for a touchdown?
Did not. I looked it down. I'm like, that cannot be right. And then I kept looking through. I'm like, yeah, they've literally got not one defensive player that scored a touchdown. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah, that's insane.
Like, I even went through some game logs. I'm like, that can't be right.
Yeah.
But, things are scoop and score wasn't really a thing back then.
Yeah.
Things have changed a little bit. Did have a pretty good kicker, Roy Jarrella. I always think of him as those old school NFL films where, every player for the Steelers had their own, fan base. And it was, Franco's Italian Army. It was Jack Lambert had one, but my favorite was the kicker, Roy Jarrella. Jarrella's Gorillas. And they wore gorilla outfits on the front row at Three Rivers Stadium. Always enjoyed that. And I'm looking at, he was 2 of 2 from 0 to 19 yards, 2 of 6 from 20 to 29 yards. He's 6 of 10 from 39 to 40, and 4 of 7 from 40 to 49, and his 150-plus yarder he missed. So 53%, which back then actually wasn't half bad for what they had. And this is a team that's coming off back-to-back Super Bowl wins, knocking off the Vikings, and had that great game against the Dallas Cowboys with all those future Hall of Famers. But this is where, in the 70s, now we talk about the Steelers dynasty. They won 2. Didn't go for 2 years, and then they won 2 after this. In 76, obviously losing to the Raiders. In 77, man, they fell off a cliff. Go 9-5, still win the division, but lost in the divisional round to Denver, who eventually went on to the Super Bowl, and they were not much better in all aspects. Bradshaw was better. He threw 17 touchdowns with 2,523 yards. His completion percentage rose to 51.6%. Unfortunately, he threw 19 interceptions on top of that. Still had a 1,000-yard rusher in Franco Harris, was another Pro Bowl award winner. I think he got the MVP that year. Defensively, they had 31 interceptions and 24 fumble recoveries. So, they went they flipped it a bit there. So they had 55, still no touchdowns. 55 turnovers, still didn't get a touchdown, but then they kind of they get things back in order in 78. They knock off the Dallas Cowboys in one of the best Super Bowls of all time, probably the best until the Patriots kind of came into the fold and that sort of thing, and then the year after that defeat the Los Angeles Rams. So we're catching the Steelers in kind of a really wild, they're not what they're still great, but they're not what they used to be sort of time.
Yeah, it was almost like a little bit of, you're kind of coming down the hill a little bit before you go back up. This is, you're catching the Steelers where they're probably, at least with this group that they had, they're most vulnerable at this time.
Yeah, absolutely, and good time to get them if you're the College All-Stars. So let's take a look at the College All-Stars. The head coach was Ara Pasagan, national championship winning coach at Notre Dame, and great career wherever he went. They had the first overall pick of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Leroy Selman, played in this game. Another notable name, Joe Washington, from most old school NFL fans. He had really good careers with the Oakland Raiders when they would have been Los Angeles. No, they would have been Oakland at the time. Oakland. Eventually Los Angeles, but really made a name for himself as a speedster for the Washington Redskins, helping the Joe Theismann, John Riggins teams win some Super Bowls. I always find him cool because he had that old school like plastic, like the ones we used to wear as kids. He had that on the front of his face mask. I always thought that was fun. And the only two-time Heisman Trophy winner, Archie Griffin, was on this football team.
Wow.
So those were the notable names going into this. So this game happened. Hang on 1 second here. Wow, I always do this. I have it pulled up and then I get lost in everything. This game happens July 23rd, 1976. So, Taylor, being the weather guy, what is the weather like in Chicago in July?
Well, it's usually, obviously, us being here in the South, it's not going to be completely comparable to that. But it gets hot up there. But at this point in the season, the jet stream is getting up higher in latitude. So that part of the country, Chicago-ish, that kind of latitude area and north, you still get some good systems that come on through, give you some storms, sometimes severe weather. That's kind of the back end of the so-called tornado season in the United States because it keeps getting north and north with time. So that's kind of that end fringe, if you will, of actually getting some substantial severe weather. But they still get multiple systems come through. You'll get rain, you'll get storms, you'll get hot, but it's not going to be as typical of a summer that you would see down here in the South where it's just completely oppressive heat-wise. You actually are still, relatively cooling off every now and then up there.
So this game happened in what has been described by several publications, and everything that I've read and all the video I've seen happened in a torrential downpour. It started pretty much right an hour before the game, and it just got progressively worse as the game went on. If you look at the video, you can barely see the players. They're slipping and sliding. There's puddling all over the AstroTurf field. This was not a grass field, thankfully for them, or their field would have been tore up.
Oh, that would have been destroyed.
Would have been absolutely destroyed. But as far as weather goes, Taylor, there's nothing real significant other than it's just you're playing at the end of tornado season. You're in Chicago. You're in the Midwest. You're on the lake. Torrential downpours happen. Most of the time, you're just not playing football games.
Exactly. You're not playing football games at that point. And, going back and trying to look to see if there's anything that was, substantial weather-related that happened that day, I really hadn't been able to find anything. So from what I would gather from that, it's just a typical, you had either a system that moved through that was bringing a batch of rain and storms, and it just happened to be right at that moment where you had this ball game, and it just made it just almost impossible to just play the game.
Well, getting into the game, so the Pittsburgh Steelers played their starters actually for a good portion of this game. And speaking of Mike Krzyzewski coming out of Boston College, who would eventually be the Steelers' backup quarterback to Terry Bradshaw, and actually started 6 games for the Steelers that year. He gets a start in this. He left 10 minutes into the first quarter after pulling his left thigh. His backup quarterback, Craig Penrose, out of San Diego State, suffered 2 broken fingers in the second quarter, so they had to go to their third stringer in an all-star game, Jeb Blunt, out of Tulsa, who played most of the game. So Jarrella, the gorilla, gets a field goal in the first quarter, 29-yarder. In the second, he hits 2, a 32-yarder, then a 23-yarder. So the Steelers are leading this 9-0. Third quarter start to break out a little bit. Franco Harris, your Pro Bowler, almost 1,200-yard rusher, 21-yard touchdown. Makes it 17-0, and Tommy Riemann, who was in the World Football League at the time, he's just trying to make a team, gets a 2-yard touchdown run. That would make it 24-0. And then with a minute 22, high winds and lightning starts to strike on the field. Yeah. So this is in the third quarter. They send the players and the coaches and their staffs to the locker rooms. Okay, we're going to wait this out and see what happens. However, while the officials are taking the teams to the locker room, fans of the 52-plus thousand invaded the field, began sliding on the turf despite the efforts of official stadium security and Chicago police. All attempts to clear the field failed, with a group of drunk fans tearing down the goalpost at the southern end of the stadium. However, by this time, the torrential rain had left parts of the field under 18 inches of water. Which means the field at this point was unplayable.
Yeah. I mean, holy cow. Going in, obviously trying to find, a weather aspect with this. Like I said, I don't think there was anything substantial that happened. But just, I had no idea that the fans came onto the field.
Yeah, this game gets nuts. And, hopefully I put the video in the right spots right here. But, you're watching it live and you're going, this is just not
Yeah.
I mean, because, not only is it raining so crazy, but, these 52,000, a lot of them stuck around.
Yeah.
Which nowadays, you're maybe lucky you get 52 to stick around for a game.
Yeah, exactly.
Or like our first game of Storms in the Snow in Shreveport. Some stuck around, but not a ton. So at 11:01, NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle and the Tribune announced the game had been called. The announcement was met with cheers. Numerous brawls broke out on the flooded field before order was finally restored. Joe Washington of Oklahoma, selected as the MVP for the College All-Star Game. We already mentioned him and the great career that he had. The Steelers outgained the College All-Stars 253-52.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And the lone great play was, I think it was a Joe Washington 28-yard run.
Yeah.
That was the lone great play for the College All-Stars, and everything that I've read. Terry Bradshaw had a rough game for obvious reasons, but the Steelers probably could have made this as bad as it could. So this just sounds like not only on the weather side of it, but an absolute it's chaos is what it sounded.
It sounded like it was chaos, and obviously the weather, contributed to the chaos with the field conditions and everything going on. But it's just fans rushing on the field, brawls breaking out. I mean, that's you talk about some comedy watching TV. That could have been good.
It's really funny to check it out. So the game was eventually terminated right after that. Chicago Tribune Charities had every intention of staging the game. However, NFL organizations, coaches, and the league itself, obviously you got high draft picks playing in this game. Insurance costs, player salaries, am I going to get a cut if I play in this? And obviously if you're giving money to anyone but the NFL isn't going to be about this.
Right.
So it eventually was left done after this game. So this is the final game of the Chicago Charities College All-Star Game, and you go out in a haze of rain, drunk people in fights, sliding on an AstroTurf field in 1976.
Okay. Can I go back and be at that game? Give me a time travel machine. I want to witness everything that went down there.
Get the best poncho you can, because it looks. I can't believe that many people stuck it out, because
it's probably because they were drunk.
And I can't believe they made it to a minute 22 left in the third, and it's just that's just the way it was. You think about nowadays, you get any sort of rain in a preseason game, these teams are like, let's call it off.
Yeah. We got a half in. That's good enough. We got a half in.
That's all we need. Our starters got their 2 series, but they had every intention of going in the locker room, waiting it out, and then coming back out and finishing this thing.
Yeah, and just think of what would happen if they did.
Oh wow!
My goodness!
What a wild ride! But it also begs the question here, Taylor, and we've heard it all the time, and we don't hear about it as much now. But like mid 2000s, when you had those great Miami teams, or early 2000s, you had those great Miami teams, and you had the great USC teams, and then moving forward throughout the 2010s and the 2020s, all those great Alabama teams, that LSU team that was crazy. Back then, even though it wasn't an individual team, but you brought these college all-stars together to face the best team from the previous year. This has sort of been tested out, even though it's a different way of, can a top college team beat an NFL team?
Yeah, and, I definitely think, especially going back and look at some of those Nick Saban Alabama teams, there were definitely some I really think could have gone toe-to-toe with some of the better NFL teams. Yeah. And you take in some of those Miami teams, heck, even going back to like the early 90s and that Miami offense that they had going on. Yeah. I mean, they could rival some of those good teams. I wish that they were able to have a game kind of like that on a year in and year out basis where you can test that. Yeah. Pin up. Like for this past year, pin up the Ohio State Buckeyes and go against the Philadelphia Eagles and just watch that happen.
Or you can take them against the worst team in the NFL. Yeah. What if they play the Jets, or what if they play Jacksonville and put them up against that? I wouldn't necessarily say the Super Bowl champion because that's just that's the pinnacle. That's supposed to be the pinnacle of your game, and I think it would be ugly. However, I think it would be better if you were going up against a bottom tier team.
You would. It would definitely be exciting. At that point, why don't you just do both?
Why not? Right?
Why not? Just see what happens.
Why not? Yeah. But it certainly begs the question. But it's just, again, our 2025 minds are just having trouble wrapping our heads around that they were actually doing this. And it happened for 42 years.
Yeah. It wasn't just a couple of years and like, all right, that's good. It went on for decades.
Yes. 42 years. They did raise $4 million. If you really want to go and dig into the math of how much that is in today's money, I'm sure it's a lot.
It probably is,
It was for a good cause, but man, what a crazy concept that these teams were on board to do.
And not only, but they played hard. Yeah. I mean, that was not like, we just could go in there and play. They played. That was a real game. They went out and tried to win.
Yeah, and there were actually 3 Steelers draft picks on that team against their own team, including a guy who eventually started 6 games for them that year, even though he didn't throw a touchdown, 3 interceptions. But you had Franco Harris just hand him the ball. Him and Rocky let him go to work. Well, Taylor, another fun episode here of Game of Storms. We will see you guys once again next week.
This is the X Sports Network.